What's up, guys? Welcome to the Tuesday, 10:30 a.m. We are doing a different kind of show here. Normally, it's Dieter in my spot, LaMarca and Joe breaking down the week from a betting perspective. We're going to kind of mash everything up today because of the holiday schedule. So we're going to do a main slate breakdown from both a betting and early DFS perspective. LaMarca, Holka, how we doing on this fine morning?
I'm good. It's busy with the holidays, right? You're trying to figure out the best thing to do. We got this weird Saturday slate to go over. Obviously, there's a game on what is it, Christmas Day or Christmas Eve? There's a
Yeah.
Friday game, right? So Christmas Day.
Day.
Yeah. So that's going to be interesting. We'll go through that. I think the best thing, if we're just going to go through the full slate, let people kind of make their way through here. I know there's some people that are only watching it for the betting perspective. Obviously, we won't have our bets against the spread show with Dieter. Dieter's on vacation, so we figured we just mash these two shows together. The one that's usually on Thursday, we'll just get a little bit more of an early start on it. So, LaMarca, how's things going with you, man? It sounds like you guys both have a sweat in this underdog thing, and I'm just gonna be basically just watch you guys from the sidelines, I guess.
Yeah, it should be fun. Again, we was talking to Pete about it. I don't know if I'm particularly live. I don't love my team. Like, I don't think it's a dominant squad, but we put up like 175 points last week, so that seems like it was pretty good. But yeah, I've got that going on, and of course the return of basketball tonight. So I'm pretty pumped. This is a good time of the year for me.
You're a big time basketball guy now.
I did one stream last night. I became such a thought leader that I was able to make fun of Pete for not taking Giannis one overall and take a Luka Doncic. He was trying to pander to his boy Mark Cuban with that pick, and I was really flex my NBA fantasy knowledge on him for what a donkey pick
I
that
don't know
was.
really anything about basketball, but Giannis is just an absolute lock at number one, right? In those best balls. What is Pete doing?
I know. He's pandering to Mark Cuban, man. You got his hey Mark, I took your boy number one overall.
Respect.
All right, let's get into it. Yeah, let's start with the Saturday games. The Friday stuff. I'm sure there'll be some showdown content out for that, but let's jump into the meaty 3-game Saturday slate. The first one, LaMarca, we got Tampa Bay at Detroit. We got Tampa Bay as, is that right? 10-point favorites here. What are we looking at in the early betting markets?
Yeah, so it's so early that we don't even really have the dollar amounts for the bets yet. It's 64% of the spread tickets though landing on Tampa Bay. So the public, it seems like, has no problem laying the points with the big road favorite, despite the fact that Tampa Bay did not play well last week.
There you go. And Joe, in this game, I think one of the big things that we have is DeAndre Swift. He's back in a big way. Things were looking really touch and go there with that concussion stuff, and his role continues to grow. I love seeing the team go back to him after he fumbled at the goal line. I was saying to us in our Discord chat on Sunday, I was like, if that's a Patricia team, DeAndre Swift doesn't see the field again the rest of the game. So anything else jumping out to you here? We're always trying to identify which Bucks wide receiver is going to be catching the ball. Do you have an inclination this week?
Man, it's so tough with those guys in general. Like, I do think that it's a good spot for Tom Brady, obviously, against this Detroit team. We've been saying it for weeks, to start everyone against the Lions. So that's been working out pretty well overall. Obviously, just like a battered Matthew Stafford. Like, we'll see if he gets in this game. I mean, the Bucks defense has been stopping the run so well. So I guess I'm a little bit spooked by the price tag with DeAndre Swift. He's 6,400. He's not really projecting super well, at least early in the week. At least from like a betting perspective, one of the things that I was looking at is the last 9 games where the Lions have been a home underdog, they're 0-9 straight up against the spread. So I think that's interesting. 3-6 against the spread, 0-9 straight up. So I think it's probably correct what LaMarca is saying about Tampa Bay still being kind of the early lean for bettors here. It's just really tough to back this Lions team overall in DFS or just in the betting markets in general. I like that this is the first game of that 3-game slate overall on Saturday, because if you end up hitting on one of those Tampa Bay wide receivers, you're in a pretty good spot. So we always talk about this, Pete, like taking shots on some of these uncertain situations early in a slate. It's like a Thanksgiving slate, game number 1. So I think this is an interesting one to have there in that spot.
And obviously it's early. We don't have anything in the way of ownership for this slate, but I do think that's a good point. Similar with the Steelers, when they have so many receiving options they use, people get overconfident in a couple of them. On a 3-game slate, I think you can really leverage that by, picking the less owned of the three, big Bucks wide receivers. I think that'll probably be a good way to attack that. The next game, Arizona hosting San Francisco, 4-point home faves. LaMarca, Kyler is back. Is the betting market in line with that?
Yeah, so Arizona getting 77% of the early spread bets, but only 50% of the dollars. So it looks like the bigger bets might be coming in on San Francisco at the moment. We're not 100% sure who's going to start at quarterback for San Francisco. Nick Mullins left. I don't know if it was more of an injury or a benching last week versus the Cowboys, but there is at least a chance that CJ Beathard starts at quarterback this week. And man, they just absolutely killed me last week. I was so disappointed in how the 49ers played. Like they basically just sleptwalked through that whole game against the Cowboys. Uh with how Kyler's played, if they don't come with a better effort, they're gonna get their doors blown off.
Joe, I think we have one kind of injury situation to monitor here. Raheem Mostert left the game again with an ankle injury. So it looks like, Jeff Wilson Jr. could be in line for a bigger workload. Although at the end of the game, we saw them mixing in Jerick McKinnon as well. He had some explosive runs. We always know Shanahan is up to some tomfoolery with his backfield usage. But assuming we don't get Mostert, do you have any interest in this backfield?
Not really. This is one that's like I expected to like this game a little bit more than I actually do. I think the 49ers are in like a real like free fall right now. Literally, I think they're that bad. They're just a team that hasn't been very good, even in the betting markets at some of these spreads they've been at. So like their past 7 games, they're 1-6 both straight up and against the spread. So I'm not really trying to be on the San Francisco side. I know that's kind of early where the lean is overall. Kyler's back. That's positive. I still think that there's just like it's hard with the Cardinals almost always in DFS because outside of Nuke, it's just so spread out and it's so thin overall. We see Larry Fitzgerald get his first touchdown of the year last week. We see Christian Kirk just continue to be in a free fall in terms of his price. So like I don't know if I love this game. I don't want to ruin as like if I happen to back in to a nice Tom Brady stack with one of those options on Tampa Bay, I don't necessarily want to ruin it with so much uncertainty in this game number 2. Brandon Ayuk still 6,700. So to me, he's probably the one guy in this game that I have a ton of interest in. I think one thing that may be a little bit interesting is we have Kendrick Bourne at 4,200. We have Richie James at 3,400. Everyone's just going to see the box score with Kendrick Bourne last week getting in the end zone on basically that Hail Mary. But Richie James is the one that had 7 targets. So what do you think about that one, Pete?
Yeah, I know. It was interesting. We saw the Richie James blow up game earlier in the year. I mean, he looks like he's really talented. And I wonder if the kind of Kendrick Bourne suck out Hail Mary will, drive the box score watchers a little bit more in his direction. And maybe Richie James does go underlooked with the better underlying volume. Are you on that one too, LaMarca?
Yeah, Richie James looks like a solid value. What are you guys doing with George Kittle if he's back?
Man, yeah. That one, here's the thing, right? Like if he's back, he'll probably end up being mega chalk, right? Like people look at that price tag, George Kittle, they'll get so excited. So my gut is like he'd be a DFS fade, but obviously he'd be pretty intriguing.
I guess the guy we didn't mention in the Tampa Bay game, Rob Gronkowski's 3,600 coming off like a really brutal matchup last week against this Detroit team. I think there's a chance that Gronk is the chalk here, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I could see that for sure as well. It's tough. We're
It is.
the ownership it takes a while to solidify here until the projections and all of that come out. So we are flying a little blind here, but wanted to get the goods out to you guys early. Let's move on to the Sunday night game. We have the Las Vegas Raiders hosting the Dolphins. My Dolphins, fins up. They are 2.5-point home, or the Dolphins are 2.5-point road favorites. Do you think this line changes at all, barring the Carr news? I'm surprised they actually already have the line up.
Yeah, well, yes, it would definitely change if Carr uh, were to miss this game, but it already kind of has changed. So, like, the advanced spread on this game was Raiders -2. So it's basically flipped in the opposite direction. Unsurprisingly, all the bets have come in so far on the Dolphins. I think that, just given the uncertainty there at the quarterback position, people want to get in early just in case this line does move. Um, the Dolphins played okay last week. The Patriots, it's just you kind of have to throw every game versus the Patriots out. They play like just such a weird style of football. It slows the game down. It turns these into these gross slugfest type performances. But the Dolphins did what they had to do. They won the game, and they need to keep winning if they want to try and hang on to a playoff spot.
Yeah, Joe, we have another kind of interesting running back situation here. Miles Gaskin didn't play last week. Savon Ahmed, stepped in, did what he did a few weeks ago in relief of Gaskin and rushed really well, 122 yards and a touchdown. Miami's kind of commitment to using a single feature back. Clearly they have their pecking order, and it's Gaskin, Ahmed, and then they start to figure it out beyond there. But I'm intrigued in this Dolphins backfield with how concentrated the touches are.
I think they've just been committed to the run in general a little bit more than I originally thought they would. Like, yeah, Ahmed had what, 20, looking at it right now, he had 23 attempts last week, one reception, but on 3 targets. So that's solid, obviously, without having anything else in that backfield with no Gaskin. But Breda, like, still touched the ball a lot in that game, 12 attempts, actually no targets for Breda. That seems odd overall. But yeah, so maybe that kind of plays to your point there, Pete. It seems like kind of thin overall at running back on this slate. I guess the deeper we kind of get into it. So yeah, maybe one of those guys would be interesting with Gaskin back. Maybe you take a shot on him at a little bit lower ownership. Like in the betting markets though, like we always talk about the Colts being like this team that the Sharps have been on all year. This Dolphins team has been absolutely smashing if you've been on them. Like literally 11-3 against the spread. That is the best mark in the NFL this year. So this Dolphins team is probably not getting enough credit. Like LaMarca said, they do need to continue to win here. So I like the Dolphins to play well. I think these price tags are interesting at quarterback. Pete, do you have any interest in Tua at 5,400?
Yeah, two of those ones where I have to like fight against kind of the narratives in my head about him, being more of a check down guy, not, really pushing the ball downfield, getting us those explosive plays. I think for me, what it will come down to is how healthy is this pass catching core, without Parker, Gesicki, and Jakeem Grant. I mean, they're down so many playmakers. They had Lynn Bowden stepping up, who's electric, but still, that's a depleted core. So I will be in on Tua if he can get at least one or two of those 3 back. Any thoughts there, Matt?
So I did see that they waived Antonio Callaway yesterday. I think that probably bodes well for at least one of those guys being back in the lineup. I don't think that they would necessarily be looking to waive players if they were still depleted at wide receiver. So I think that it sounded like there was a chance that Gasecki and Parker were going to play last week and were like late scratches almost. So
Yeah.
I think that they're closer to full strength this week. I just don't. Again, you mentioned the Tua biases. I kind of have them as well. You look at the box scores and they're fine, but just watching him, like nothing that he does impresses me at the moment.
Yeah, I do think I think Tua is going to get better, but I don't know if we are going to see him absolutely smash here. But again, when we push across against those biases, he has shown us a couple ceiling games already. So we got to keep that in the range of outcomes. And
Yep.
on a 3-game slate where Brady, where Kyler are going to be really popular, Tua could be a guy we look to get unique. Let's move on to this main slate now. One of the more intriguing games, LaMarca and I were talking about our best ball teams, this KC versus Atlanta. They are 11.5-point home favorites. Do the bettors think the Falcons can hang in here? Or is this a rout here at Arrowhead in December?
So no, they do not. 54% of the bets on the Chiefs, 85% of the dollars. The spread has kind of fluctuated a little bit. You can get it at 10.5. You can get it at up to 11.5. So the one thing that I think we have to watch here is that the Chiefs don't need this game like at all. The Chiefs, I think they have solidified the top spot in the AFC. I'm not saying that they'll rest players, but who knows? Doesn't seem like the smartest idea to rest players week 16 and week 17 and have a bye week. That's a lot of time to not play football. But do we see like the full Death Star version of the Chiefs, or do they keep it a little bit more vanilla than usual? I don't know. It's something to consider.
Yeah, and Joe, like one other kind of narrative we've gotten is the Chiefs going for some of these records. Travis Kelce is now 6 yards behind DeAndre Hopkins to finish as the league leader in receiving. I could see them going out here one more hurrah, trying to get Kelce. And is Tyreek Hill still leading for touchdowns too? So do you buy into any of these narratives pushing the Chiefs, or are you worried about maybe them taking the feet off the gas here?
I'm normally, I guess, on board to jump on a good narrative, but I think this team just wants to win another Super Bowl. I don't think they give a shit about any of that stuff, if I'm being completely honest. I think that it's a nice story, and it definitely makes sense. The Kelce stuff, it's really pretty amazing what he's been able to do this year. This game scares me in general from a betting perspective, more than a DFS perspective. This Falcons team has been absolutely horrendous on the road overall. They're 0-7 against the spread against road teams in the AFC, so in their last 7. So I think that's interesting, but also like the Chiefs have just not been covering lately at all. In their last 6 games, 0-5-1 against the spread. That's one of the worst streaks in the entire NFL. So I think that's something to consider. These price tags for these Chiefs, man, like if we think that this is going to be some sort of shootout, we're probably just playing the Matt Ryan side, right? Because he's 5,800. Patrick Mahomes is 8,500. So it's just such a big difference in price there. Obviously, we still have guys like Calvin Ridley. He's all the way up to 8,500. But Tyreek Hill, 9K. Travis Kelce, 8,500. They just keep increasing Kelce's price, 500 every single week until he fails. So I don't really know. At some point, these KC guys are not going to pay off their price tags, right? So then you're kind of trying to pick which one. So that's tough overall. Obviously, the injury to CEH, Le'Veon Bell at 5,700. I think he's probably going to be pretty chalky in the spot, even against a tough run defense against Atlanta. Any thoughts on, I guess, these price tags, LaMarca or Le'Veon? Is it Le'Veon chalk week? That's kind of scary.
Ugh.
Yeah, so he might be. I think I prefer Ito at 4K. The coaching staff kind of came out and said that he was their lead back at the moment. That didn't necessarily materialize in a lot of touches last week. He had 6 carries and 3 targets, but I do think that Todd Gurley, we've been saying it all year, right? The dude is just super dust. It's Ito's time, and this Kansas City team is a great matchup for running backs. They suck against the run. They're even worse in defending passes to running backs out of the backfield. So Ito Smith 4K, to me, that's like a pretty sexy little punt play right there.
Yeah, I read that quote this morning too, and it seems like the team's just completely fed up with Todd Gurley. It took them a long time to realize that, and it's also been interesting to see how quickly he surpassed Brian Hill, who is kind of operating as the handcuff there. So yeah, I love the Ito call. He's going to catch passes too, and if we can get him those goal line carries, he's an absolute smash at 4,000. So I like the Ito call. Let's move on here to this next game. We got Cleveland versus the Jets. I am known to like to attack the Jets in DFS here. 10-point spread. People, I think the betting markets are showing a little bit more trust in the Jets after their big upset win, Matt.
What a disaster. God, I hate this team so much. The line here is definitely more reasonable than it was last week. Cleveland's roughly 9.5 or 10-point favorites on the road. All the money so far, all the bets landing on Cleveland. They do not think that the Jets can do it 2 weeks in a row. But you know what? Why not? Now that we can't get friggin' Trevor Lawrence, let's go win another game. Let's have some fun, Pete.
There you go. There you go. It's, people were giving the Dolphins crap last year for, messing up their tank. But people were saying, hey, we're building a culture. We're building a winning culture here. And it does seem to work. So maybe the Jets just transition right into being a playoff team on the fly. Joe, is there anything here for DFS purposes? The Browns, another one of those kind of tough teams to crack with their usage here, but I got to assume things set up nicely for Jarvis Landry.
Yeah, I think Landry is my favorite play in this game. Like, it's another week where you just look at the price tags and you look at some of the like underlying data, and these Jets guys seem underpriced. But like the problem with these air yards things is they have to actually come from a quarterback that's going to put it within arm's reach of actually coming down with some of these air yards. So those guys are scary. I've just basically told myself over the last 3 or 4 weeks I'm going to start to ignore guys like Denzel Mims. If I miss out on the big game between those guys, I think I'm okay with it at this point. So I like Landry quite a bit. He's kind of expensive at 6,900. The thing about this main slate, guys, is there's really not a lot to pay up for at running back, right? Like there's like nothing basically, because we have Kamara and Dalvin Cook on Friday night. And then we just look at this, and at the pricing, the top end of the pricing, Nick Chubb is the most expensive running back on the slate if we're assuming that Christian McCaffrey's not going to play. So I strongly prefer Austin Eckler for 200 less. I think I might even be on Miles Sanders for 800 less against Dallas. So I don't know. I don't think that I'll be on the Nick Chubb train this week. Pete, you're just always on Kareem Hunt and that side of things. So is that where you're going in this game?
Oh, I thought you were going to say you're always on Denzel Mims, because I'm looking at him down here at 3,600. Someone literally posted, my buddy Drew posted a meme this morning that's, Dave Chappelle doing the crack addict, but it's the air yards getting sprinkled on Denzel Mims. So yes, I will get even on Denzel Mims this year, and I will go down trying. Any other final takes on this game, Matt?
Yeah, I kind of like Rashad Higgins.
Okay.
If you want to, attack the Browns in a little bit of a more contrarian manner, I am of the believer that he is actually pretty good, and we've seen him get worked into this Cleveland offense a bit more now that they're passing it. Like I have been the biggest Baker Mayfield denier in on Twitter in this group. I don't know, but he's now had 3 straight games where he's played great. So I don't know. Maybe something is fixed with him. Maybe we need to start considering Baker as one of these young rookie quarterbacks, or not rookie, but young quarterbacks with promise. I had pretty much written him off after last year and the start of this season, but the dude's been balling recently, so he's making me change my tune on the Browns a little bit.
I mean, he's been a quarterback over the past 4 weeks and now gets one of the best possible matchups. So as usual, I'll be curious to see how his ownership shakes out. Let's move on to what appears to be a pretty gross game. Chicago at Jacksonville here. 7.5 point. Am I seeing this right? Road favorites here. What are the people doing with this one, Matt?
They're betting on Mitch Trubisky. Again, early in the week, so take these numbers with a little bit of a grain of salt. But 83% of the tickets, 97% of the dollars, and I get it. I have been on the Bears the last couple of weeks, and they looked wonderful last week. I mean, their defense wasn't as impressive as I thought they were going to be against Matt Stafford, but I'm telling you, man, Mitch Trubisky, he just hits different. It's just a good feeling having him back under center as opposed to Nick Foles and David Montgomery. I don't know what happened to that dude, but it's like he transformed into Saquon Barkley overnight.
Joe, David Montgomery is now 7,700. I think 2 weeks ago, he was 6,400. This past week, he was 7,000. He's like Bitcoin. The price just keeps going up, up, up. Are you buying the top on David Montgomery, or are you waiting to buy the dip?
I mean, I'm not scared to buy the top. You know this, Pete. I'm trying to figure out if I'm too late on sports cards, but I don't know, man. 7,700. The name doesn't. It does. I mean, it might hit right for LaMarca with Trubisky. The David Montgomery at 7,700 doesn't really hit right for me. Again, there's just not a lot to pay up for at running back, so I could see Montgomery being maybe not a priority, but in this spot, it makes a lot of sense. But guys, we've completely buried the lead here. It's a revenge spot for Allen Robinson. Like, that is the play in this game, right? He is 7,700 against Jacksonville. I just want to see Allen Robinson with a real quarterback just once in his prime. But this is a spot where I think that he's a guy that makes a ton of sense. I don't know where the ownership is going to be on him. You would play him if you think that there's going to be a little bit of back and forth in this game, which might be a little bit of a stretch. But Allen Robinson, if he's like 15, 10% owned, something like that, I think that's pretty solid.
Just remember, I want to point out one other revenge game now that we're going down that territory. Lynn Bowden versus the team that traded him away versus the Raiders. Now he's on the Dolphins. So another narrative to watch out for on Saturday. Let's see here. Yeah. Anything else interesting in this game? I mean, the Jags wide receivers continue to be all fairly cheap. I think you can go to my guy, Laviska. I think you can go to DJ Chark here. It seems like they're always so close to a big game and just don't quite get there. LaMarca, do you like this matchup for the Jags pass catchers versus Chicago?
Not really.
Yeah.
I mean, Chicago's defense has regressed, but they have been pretty solid. And I also don't think that it's going to create as much garbage time as there was last week. Like the Ravens just blew their doors off. Like it wasn't even close to the point where the Jags, had to throw the ball a lot. I don't think that's necessarily the case this week versus the Bears. So we'll see what happens. We didn't mention James Robinson, left that last game with an injury. If he's out, you know, we're looking at like Dare Ogunbowale, maybe a little Divine Ozigbo. So that's going to be an interesting situation too.
Let's move on here to this next game. We have the team that absolutely disgusts everyone right now. The Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Indianapolis Colts. Do we even have a line up for this one right now? I'm not seeing it on my sheet.
Pick them. Yeah,
Pick 'em.
the advanced spread was Steelers -3. Now it's either a pick 'em or the Colts are even favored in some spots. So some pretty significant movement based on what happened with the Steelers last night. And yeah, I have kind of been sitting here saying, don't overreact to a couple games. The Steelers are still a good team, blah, blah, blah. And I may have to start changing my tune after that performance last night. I don't know what happened to Ben Roethlisberger. It's like he turned into an old man overnight. I know that he is old by NFL standards, but he was playing pretty well at the start of the season, and now he can't throw the ball more than 10 yards past the line of scrimmage. It's pretty ugly. They obviously have no run game to lean on to help him out. So this offense has just really looked terrible. We know that the Colts are a team that the Sharps like. So 99% of the early dollars have landed on Indy. It may be time to just abandon ship on Pittsburgh.
Well, that's what I'm thinking here too. I mean, the Sharps have been betting Indianapolis all year. I kind of want to hop on this early because I feel like you just have the two kind of prevailing trends: the Sharps wanting to bet the Colts, and then the Steelers looking completely fraudulent. Holka, where are you at with maybe making a stand here? And any of these Pittsburgh guys you're willing to go back to in DFS?
Yeah, so I've been watching more of these island games a little bit more recently, at least a little bit more closely with all the showdown action going on. So, like, I had some decent teams last night with Benny Snell and Gio Bernard, but man, you watch Big Ben right now, and it's like he's not like Carson Wentz level panic, but he is missing wide open wide receivers. Chase Claypool, that guy is still an absolute baller. We talked about it last night on your stream, Pete, that like he's been kind of getting less snaps than James Washington, but last night he goes out there, gets 8 targets, only 3 catches, but he had 3 targets in the red zone. Ben missed them for 2 touchdowns. One of them deep, and the other one just in the corner of the end zone that was just out of Claypool's reach. So it's really frustrating to see these guys are getting open. I know people just want to talk about the drops in Pittsburgh. Ebron goes out, like Claypool comes in. I mean, he should have had just a massive game in this spot. So it's really frustrating overall. This is not a get right spot against the Colts. So I'm with you on wanting to be on the other side of maybe just a little bit of overconfidence. But man, Ben has looked bad. He was a guy that like we weren't as worried about at times this year because the volume was there because they just can't run the football. So he's been throwing the ball like 30, 40 times, but he's underthrowing guys. He's not hitting open guys. And now it's just kind of in his head a little bit. So I'm a little bit worried, I think, about this Pittsburgh team overall. You could see this team making playoffs and get bounced in the first round easily, right?
Yeah, no, you totally can see that. I know early on people were talking like, oh, Steelers versus Chiefs. I can't wait for that AFC championship game. I can wait for it because the Chiefs will absolutely wipe the floor.
The Titans will absolutely dump truck Pittsburgh in the playoffs, literally.
Yeah. LaMarca, any other fantasy takes here? Maybe on the Colts side? I mean, Jonathan Taylor really starting to get going here. taking over this backfield, looks what everyone thought he was going to be when the Colts traded up to draft him. And then I was happy to see T.Y. Hilton continued or didn't continue to ruin my age bias here. Any other Colts takes?
Yeah, I wish that it was just a more like easily predictable situation, because I do think that the Colts offense has like been sneaky good. Like I think we all kind of assumed that Philip Rivers was done, but the last 5 games, 27, 44, 26, 26, 34, 34 points. It's a lot of points for a team that nobody ever really has any exposure to. The only problem is you don't know if it's going to be T.Y. Hilton. You don't know if it's going to be Pittman. Zach Pascal scored 2 touchdowns last week from, the grave, essentially. Uh, I think that against the Steelers, it's probably not a team that you need to go crazy against. So I think that I will likely be passing on the Colts.
That sounds about right to me. Let's move on to this next game. We have Washington versus Carolina. What lines are we looking at here, Matt?
So lines, we are still waiting for them to be posted at most locations, given the Alex Smith injury and the Antonio Gibson injury. And then of course we had this news about Dwayne Haskins partying maskless at a strip club. So who knows what's going to happen with him? They may be down to a practice squad wide receiver at quarterback, like like the Broncos were a couple of weeks ago. So it's hard to give any definitive takes without knowing who's going to be under center for Washington. But this is a huge game. Suddenly, the Cowboys are live again in the NFC East after winning 2 straight. The Eagles are still right there. The Giants are still right there. Washington kind of needs this one, and it would be nice if they had their full squad back in action.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Joe, anything standing out for you here in DFS? We always talk about Christian McCaffrey theoretically coming back. It seems like a tease every week. He might practice. He might practice. Well, it never seems like it. It doesn't seem to make sense. They should probably just continue to ride Mike Davis here. Any other thoughts on this team? I know Terry McLaurin's interesting. DJ Moore's interesting. I always like taking shots on these receivers. Are you interested?
Yeah, I think for me, it's exactly what you just said. It's like trying to find some gold with these Carolina wide receivers. I think all those guys, I mean, they always look a little bit underpriced, but I think Robbie Anderson at 5,500 stands out for sure. This Washington team has been kind of difficult to figure out in some ways, just because this defense has times, like at times, can just absolutely take over. They're 9-5 against the spread on the season, second best mark in the NFL. There is at least one line out there that has Washington -2. So we'll see what happens with the Haskins thing. That sounds like an absolute disaster. Outside of that, I don't really see a lot of appeal in this game overall.
Yeah, it's Haskins. There was this thought that he would maybe lock in on Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin has a pretty big target share with non-Alex Smith receivers, and he locked into Logan Thomas. So I'm a little worried about that, but I will say Terry is the exact kind of wide receiver where if his ownership is finally, under 10%, I think that's a screaming buy, just knowing his role and how good of a player he is. Let's move on now to this Baltimore New York Giants game here, Matt. What are the bettors doing?
Yeah, another one where we're waiting for a line. Again, Daniel Jones going to be an important status. Colt McCoy is just so bad. He got the Giants into field goal range a couple times versus the Browns, but no touchdowns. They are not going to be able to move the ball with him under center. So obviously, big deal to determine if Daniel Jones is going to be able to play this week. I think he probably does suit up. I mean, this is essentially like a must-win game for the Giants, and they didn't rule him out last week until very late in the week. So hopefully he's back. But either way, it's hard to go against Lamar right now. He's playing the best football that he's played all season.
Yeah, he does look really good. He's getting back to rushing. His weapons are finally kind of healthy after all the kind of bouncing around on and off the COVID list. Joe, I always get burned trying to chase like Darius Slayton or one of these Giants pass catchers. Is there anything we can bring it back with in this game?
Yeah, so in terms of Lamar, yeah, he's been amazing. They've covered in 4 straight games. I am seeing a 10-point spread in favor of Baltimore in this one early. I know it's kind of been all over the place this early in the week, but that's kind of the benchmark that I'm seeing overall. It's kind of interesting that Lamar's never lost to an NFC team. I didn't know that until kind of looking into this a little bit as well. So I think that just being on the Ravens makes a lot of sense here. I think on the other side of it, maybe Sterling Shepard at 4,500. If there's going to be some pressure coming his way, maybe he's the guy. I have a hard time with Darius Slayton in matchups where I think that there's going to be pressure coming on the quarterback, especially the Giants. Their offensive line is not very good. Evan Ingram is 3,900, so that's at least a price that stood out to me. What's that?
He's a Pro Bowler, Joe.
Did they come out with a Pro Bowl this year? When did that happen? Why
I think
why?
yesterday.
Just like
there was a lot of people saying has no one in the league watched Evan Ingram play this year. He is literally ranked, I want to say 53rd among tight ends by Pro Football Focus, and he is a Pro Bowler.
That's a tough scene. That's all I got. I think that's a good way to end this one. You guys, we did skip over. It is a birthday narrative for Nick Chubb, by the way. So if anyone wants to circle back to everything I said negative about Nick Chubb, I take it all back.
This hurts. I mean, what if Kareem Hunt goes to, who is it, Stefanski, and is like, all I want for my birthday is for my buddy Nick Chubb to have all my touches. I mean, that kind of stuff happens, right, guys?
100%.
All right, let's go on. We got Houston versus Cincinnati. Cincinnati coming off a big emotional win. LaMarca, is this a letdown spot versus the Texans?
Yeah, I mean, a letdown for the Bengals is just a normal week. They clearly were hyped up to play in prime time against a hated division rival last night. And the Steelers helped them immensely with their turnovers. They had 3 turnovers in the first half. Felt like it should have been more. You know, they had the Ben fumble on the exchange stat. He threw a pick, and then Juju getting rocked and fumbling the ball right around the logo that he was dancing on pregame. There was just something a bit poetic about that. But this Bengals team is not one that I want to invest in. They still racked up just 230 yards of offense. They're not a team that can consistently play good defense. So if people are feeling optimistic about them off of their win last night, I would love to be in the other direction. The only problem is that Houston's no good either.
I will say though, Joe, I mean, if there is anyone who has done a ton with a little this year, it's Deshaun Watson. I mean, every single week he seems to lose another one of his pass catchers, and he continues to make it work. He could have had 40 points on Sunday if Kiki Kuti doesn't fumble that game goes to overtime. I mean, just absolutely balling out here. Are you willing to go back to him in what appears to be a pretty good matchup?
It feels like, how many weeks this year have we gotten Deshaun Watson and at least 1-2 of his pass catchers at like super low ownership? Like, it seems like no one wants to go near this situation, because what LaMarca said, the narrative is that this team is really bad. The narrative's probably true. Cincinnati, I mean, they did look like a completely different team last night against the Steelers. You can tell that there's just so much animosity there overall. But yeah, I am on the side of maybe it's a decent letdown spot overall. I didn't realize that Cincinnati has been so bad on the road. Their last 20 games away from Cincinnati, 19-1 straight up. They've been decent against the spread over that stretch, 11-9. But I don't know. I think that I'd just rather place some hard-earned American dollars on Deshaun Watson versus Ryan Finley.
Yeah, I will say I'm definitely interested in these pass catchers again. Their prices continue to stay about the same. I think Chad Hansen at 4,400 just continues to look really good in this offense,
and figuratively.
Oh yeah, I mean, total dreamboat. I mean, probably one of the sexiest guys in the NFL.
T. Higgins, nice price for him, 4,700 if Boyd's banged up after kind of taking that, basically he hit his helmet on the turf last night. So I think he's someone that would be interesting as a bring back on Houston stacks.
Yeah, well, there you go. I mean, Joe just quickly pivoting away the conversation from Chad Hansen's dreamy good looks. But
he is very dreamy. Should we put him on the thumbnail?
I think you should. I mean, that's how you get clicks. Let's say, what's you, Joe? You look at our YouTube demo. What is our, our male to female ratio here?
Believe it or not, we have about 1.5% last time I looked, female listeners. So shout out to like the 30 people out there, roughly. We appreciate you. I've got like a 3% on my channel. So what do you got, Pete?
Ooh,
I think I'm at 1%.
You get too
brings
far
in
in the
the
weeds,
ratings.
though. You get real deep in the weeds.
Yeah. Well, whatever. We're converting every individual on planet Earth into a single entry and 3 max GPP player.
Yeah.
Okay. We got the Chargers versus Denver here. Moving on to these 4 p.m. games. LaMarca, what are we looking at here? I see a 3.5 point spread. Is that what you got?
That's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing there's some threes out there too. It's kind of varying between the books. Um, Chargers getting the early public support, 61%, but only 450 bets tracked on this game so far. So it's very early here. Interesting spot, right? I mean, the Chargers are a team that can play great, but they just seem to get sabotaged at all turns by their coaching staff. I mean, that game between the Raiders and the Chargers last week was just like an all-time clinic for bad coaches. Like they should show that game film at the bad coaching clinic seminars. Uh it- Justin Herbert can put up points. Denver's a tough defense. They have a great pass rush, but the Chargers have had some good offensive line play this year. They have been dealing with a couple of injuries though, so we'll have to monitor the injury report there. But I would imagine that this seems like a spot where the public is going to be on the Chargers for sure.
Is the Broncos
Yeah.
defense good? We just saw them get absolutely dump trucked by Josh Allen last week, didn't we?
Well, Josh Allen, if you believe my dad, is the second best quarterback in the league. So
Love
I kind
love
of
the
believe
bold
you, man.
take.
Say, I think he's the second best fantasy quarterback in the league for sure. I mean, the Bills right now, what they're doing, where they just refuse to run the ball, which is beautiful. They will pass in almost all situations. They go for it on 4th down whenever the math even remotely dictates they do it. I mean, this is like the most fantasy friendly offense going right now. And I will say, when we're going to talk about them in a second, I'm a little worried about their matchup with New England this week for all of us trying to chase these big prizes in the season long tournaments. But anyways, let's get back to the matter at hand here. Joe, Keenan Allen lied to us last week. A lot of people played Keenan Allen in DFS in season long. He told us not to sit him. I had no reason to think he might lie to me, Joe. I got burned so hard.
Man, we need a little bit more integrity out of these guys, right? Like we know that the fantasy people in general are at the top of their minds pretty much all the time, right? But Keenan Allen literally goes in the stands and says, "Don't sit me." Like I listen to a guy like Keenan Allen like that. I feel like he believes in me, he cares about me, and then he goes out there and I don't know, was there a re-aggravation of that injury or what happened? Did he just completely do that on purpose? Like I don't understand these guys. Sometimes makes me upset.
he was playing against Keenan Allen in his fantasy league this week.
Yeah, there you go. I like this game a little bit more than you guys, it sounds like, for fantasy. These Denver wide receivers are insanely cheap. We got Jerry Jeudy 3,700, KJ Hamler 3,200, Tim Patrick 4,200. Like the bringbacks in this game, it feels like almost like a low-key jet spot in some ways, just because like the Chargers guys are kind of expensive, but it's so cheap on the other side that you can make stacks work. Like I love Austin Eckler at 7,600 if people are going to be off him after last week where he kind of drops a little bit of a dud, just 13 attempts, 4 catches. So you'd like a little bit more than that at that price point, but at the top end of running back, it's kind of thin, guys. So I think that this game is really interesting from a stacking perspective, more just because I think the Denver guys are way too cheap.
Yep. I agree. I think these guys are all very intriguing at these price tags. I mean, we're only like 3 weeks removed, 3 or 4 weeks from like Jerry Jeudy leading the league in air yards over a few weeks stretch. And I know LaMarca is already grinning. He's giving me that football guy grin when I mention my air yards, aren't you, Matt?
No, I only do it when the air yards are coming from Sam Darnold. That's the only time I question the stat. Sure, why not?
Well, I will say like Drew Lock sucks, whatever. But again, he can be very friendly for fantasy because they get down and they just chuck. And if these guys are getting targets deep down the field in negative game scripts, it's unlikely all of them hit. But at these price tags, you can pick your poison with Jeudy or Hamler or even Fan. You can pay up for Patrick. I say pay up. He's 4,200. I mean, so I'm with you guys here. I think this game makes a ton of sense for bringbacks, mini correlations, all that kind of good stuff. Let's move on here to some of these other games. We have Philadelphia at Dallas. I'm seeing Dallas as 1.5 point favorites. Is that what you got?
I think it's Philly is now favored.
Philly.
Philly
Okay.
1.5. Yep.
Philly is our road favorites. And it's just all aboard the Jalen Hurts Express right now. 87% of the bets, 92% of the money coming in on Philly. Uh, and yeah, I got guys just to confirm. Doug Peterson did say Jalen Hurts would start this week. Just in case there was a question in your minds about whether or not Jalen Hurts is going to be benched, feel free to fire him up in your leagues where you own him. He's going to be in there. But seriously, just super impressive debut. I think that there were some questions about how effective he could be as a passer at the NFL level. So far, no problems there. 338 yards last week, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions yet. Um, he looks like the real deal. I am heavily buying the Jalen Hurts stock. I was kind of bullish on him as a prospect just because those guys that can run and pass a little bit are just super intriguing to me. Plus, you factor in the breakout as a true freshman in college. Like that's a very unique profile right there. But he has 100% surpassed even the highest expectations for him to start his career. So I think there's no reason to go away from him against the Dallas team that is not good.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts looking absolutely awesome. Always fun to get an influx of new great quarterback talent in the league, giving us plenty of options when we go to select our quarterbacks. We are a little in the blind here on how Ezekiel Elliott's situation is going to play out this week. He was a late scratch last week. Doesn't seem to make sense to rush him back if he's not good, with Tony Pollard looking so good. But Joe, I think Pollard would be another smash if he gets this backfield to himself.
Yeah, I like Pollard. I like both the running backs in this game. I think Miles Sanders is still interesting at 7K. I mean, we talked about Pollard last week. I guess that was like our one disagreement with Leone when we were building our tilt space teams, is that we were pretty much, he was a smash. I think that he was one of those guys that if he would have been in projections earlier in the week, would have been just massively owned. But when that news broke, some people were still trying to talk themselves into guys that were a little bit cheaper. So 6,500, that's probably a more reasonable price tag for sure if Zeke's out. So we'll keep an eye on that calf injury. Jalen Hurts at 7K. I struggle with, like, this is a tough game overall for target share because it's so spread out. You just look at even just the median projections for these passing weapons across the board. It's like all over the place. Like they all stand out as reasonable values, but I'm not sure exactly where to go. You see a guy like Greg Ward last week catch 2 touchdowns on very limited usage. We see Michael Gallup get in the end zone. He was in the buy low model, but just like it seems a little bit too spread out. Like there's no one that really just like stands out in the passing game for me. So like that makes the price tag for Jalen Hurts a little bit tougher to swallow at 7K. Like you can run him out naked like we have been, but it's getting tougher to do that and still get like some of these effective guys around him that are a little bit more expensive.
Yeah, that price tag is getting up there. His will be a really interesting one to check in on ownership. But man, I still think these guys with that kind of rushing floor can absolutely obliterate their price tag here. So yeah, it's all going to depend on if this game can get funky or not. Let's go to this next game here. We got Seattle versus the Rams, divisional matchup. Looks like Seattle is a 1.5 point home fave. What are we doing here?
Yeah, well, the public is definitely on Seattle. 54% of the bets, so not a huge lean, but they're taking Seattle. But 63% of the dollars are on the Rams. I still believe in the Rams. I still think they're a quality football team. They just kind of got caught with their pants down last week. Like they were clearly looking ahead to the Seattle game. They took the Jets lightly, and a lot of just fluky stuff happened. They had a one-handed interception. Like the Jets played their best game of the season, and the Rams were not ready for it. So I think this is probably a pretty good spot to try and buy low on them. Although this game being in Seattle obviously is a bit scarier. I was definitely on the Rams when these two teams played in LA, and I think that the way things set up, it's probably a good time to do it again.
Yeah, that makes sense. Joe, any takes on this game? I feel like is Russ going to cook? That's what I'm trying to say. I want Russ to cook so bad. I want to go back to being able to play Russ to Metcalf. But this Rams pass defense has been pretty good. I am not worried about Jalen Ramsey, for the record, but I am worried about just how Pete Carroll is calling plays right now.
Yeah, man, I really want to be there on the Metcalf thing because he's going to have another big game this year at some point. It's going to come out of nowhere because he's expensive. No one wants to play him because of the uncertainty of this offense overall. We've seen it. We've talked about it basically all the time. This LA team has just been dominant against the Seahawks, 5-1 in their last 6 games. So they just look so terrible last week that there's no way that they don't bounce back here. Their defense, I think, is going to be the difference in this one. I don't have a lot of, I guess, conviction on playing Seahawks in this spot overall because they all seem overpriced to me. Like if you're just looking at like what they've been doing recently, but also just some of the price tags, it's just I can't quite get there at least this early in the week. Maybe if you're just trying to get something that's going to be super low owned, like we saw Russell Wilson go 2% in the live final on DraftKings last week, which was kind of surprising. I thought more people would kind of galaxy brain themselves into that, but I think the more you dig into it, the more that these guys just look, it's really tough with their prices.
Yeah, it is. And man, I wish I could have more faith in him. And I know LaMarca, we got to do the victory lap. What did you win? How much do I owe you? I need to Venmo you. $25 was our bet.
You know it was 50.
Was it?
Yeah.
You got it. I believe you. I just don't remember.
It was 50. We
Wow.
could roll the tape.
I know. I believe you. I needed confirmation there. Okay. I really got out ahead of my skis. What was our bet? Was it Hopkins versus Metcalf?
Correct.
Okay. I'll Venmo you here in a second.
Good for me for staying out on that one.
Yeah, seriously.
I'm burning enough money on dumb things right now. I don't need to burn money on those props with you guys.
I should be doing more of them.
You're hot, and you should start goading Pete into more bets like this. That's like your literally your cash cow right now.
I know. Let's see here. Let's go with our next game. We have do you guys want to do the night games, Joe?
It's up to you, man.
Let's do some quick betting takes. I haven't looked at the salaries at all for these night games. I don't even know if they're out. Green Bay, Tennessee. LaMarca, you were telling me this one already has a monstrous total.
Yeah, huge total, 56-point total. The Packers are relatively short home favorites. They're just either 3 or 3.5 points. I think a lot of people look at they want to be invested in the Titans right now. They're getting 73% of the dollars and I'm sorry, 73% of the tickets, 78% of the dollars in this matchup. So people like this Titans team. You know, they love the big dog. They love this offense that they have, but I think that this could be a tough week for them. Rodgers is just too good as a big home favorite. And this Packers team has really impressed me with the way that they've played. We know that Rodgers is great. He started to get a little bit of help from that defense recently. They're starting to play better on that side of the ball. And if they can do that, I think this team is a real threat to make it to the Super Bowls and possibly even give Patrick Mahomes a game.
Yeah. I think that could be the case. I know we were talking earlier. I have a lot of Tannehill in these best ball contests heading into week 16. The FBI is going to kick down my door and arrest me for talking about it on a show right now. But please, Holka, who do you think? Is this a Tannehill, AJ Brown, Corey Davis, Jonnu Smith kind of game? Or is this a big dog in December at Lambeau kind of game?
Man, I need LaMarca's take on this trend that I saw, because I know he hates these at times, but Aaron Rodgers is his boy. So like I kind of think it might be a big dog game, but Aaron Rodgers since the start of 2009, 20-2 straight up in the month of December at Lambeau, 17-5 against the spread. What do you is that like just like making the data work for my argument, LaMarca, or is there something to it with Lambeau Field in December and these big favorites for Rodgers?
Yeah, I mean, you can at least make a narrative that December means something in Lambeau just because it's kind of cold. You know, like I think that's kind of tying a home trend and a weather trend together, sort of in an interesting way. So I don't. Yeah, that's not the worst trend that I've heard you bring up on this show.
All right, the final game, the Monday Night Football hammer, the number 2 ranked quarterback in the NFL, according to Matt LaMarca's dad, is going on the road to New England here. They are 7-point road favorites. How are we feeling, Matt?
Oh, everybody wants to be on the Bills right now. 79% of the tickets, 99% of the dollars. I think that the Bills might be like everybody, like the casual fans' favorite team in the NFL right now. They just are a fun team. Josh Allen is a really exciting player. You mentioned how fantasy friendly that offense is. Like they just chuck it. He runs. They're really fun right now, and I think that there are a lot of people out there who think that if anyone in the AFC is going to be able to beat the Chiefs this year, it's going to be the Bills, despite the fact that we've already seen those two teams play and the Chiefs came out on top. So, uh, yeah, it's a very tough spot to consider backing the Patriots coming off of a disgusting performance last week. They just have no offensive capability at this point. Plus, now they've lost Stephon Gilmore. This defense could be in trouble here. As much as I would like to say that this spread, has ballooned to 7 and it looks like a potential buy low spot for the Patriots, I'm not sure what's left to buy with New England at this point. They've kind of been exposed as a fraud.
Yeah. Joe, am I right to be worried about some of my Allen and Diggs shares here? We always have the narrative that Bill Belichick goes out, stops these best weapons. And if he doesn't do that, he generally finds a way to slow these games down and make them pretty gross from a fantasy perspective. But are the Bills just such an offensive juggernaut that it might not matter?
The Bills and Stephon Diggs, where there will be no Stephon Diggs slander on this show. I mean, but you kind of said it. Like the Bills have, if they've struggled against someone, it's been against the Patriots. But you see the post game with Belichick, and he just looks absolutely defeated because he knows he's going out there and he's just completely outmatched at almost every level of the field. The Bills covered in 6 straight games, longest streak in the NFL, 9-5 against the spread on the season, tied for the second best mark in the NFL. So I think there's, I guess, an argument in favor of just everyone's jumping on the Bills bandwagon. But I think they try in a statement game, Pete. They make a statement here that this is their division. So I'm in on the Bills. It's going to be a fun game. These games, these later games are going to be fun to watch for sure. So they did a pretty good job on the schedule this week. The main slate's kind of gross, but we got a nice Friday game. We got a nice game. We got, I guess, a nice Saturday slate. And some nice games on Sunday and Monday.
Yeah, it's going to be a long, fun week of football. It's going to be one of those crazy weeks for us for putting out videos. You got the showdown, the 3-game slate, the main slate, all this stuff. So it's going to be a wild week. We hope you guys have an awesome holiday season here. If you guys are celebrating Christmas this week, getting the days off, enjoy that. For all you guys up in Canada, you guys do they do Boxing Day right up there. Is that what they do, Joe?
Yep, Boxing Day, day after Christmas.
There you go. Boxing Day. Matt LaMarca, anything you'd like to plug here? You're going to have your betting article out soon?
I will. That'll be out on Thursday morning, same timeline for that article. I will continue to be doing the Monday Night Football write-ups. And if you guys are looking for hoops content, you can find that from me all over the place, but just check my Twitter. I usually am pretty good about tweeting it out. So I'm excited for a 2-game NBA slate tonight. I know that neither of you guys are huge NBA fans, but you've got Steph Curry versus Kevin Durant in game 1, followed by the battle for LA in game 2. Should be a good time.
Joe, anything you'd like to plug? What's your YouTube schedule this week?
Normal time on Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern time. Knock out a bunch of different segments. And then I think that we're probably going to skip the Showdown Cram on my channel. Obviously on Mondays, it's been on Peter's channel. Thursday is Christmas Eve. So probably going to skip that one this week.
There's no Thursday night game to even cram.
True. This is true. We guess we could do a Friday one, but I don't know, man. I don't want to back myself into that corner. There will be a Locks of the Week segment with TJ Hernandez on the Line Movement channel, probably going out on Thursday or Friday, so keep an eye out for that. We'll have our normal Sunday schedule. I'll be live at 9 a.m. Eastern time on my channel, 11 a.m. Eastern time on the Line Movement channel. Obviously, Tilt Space at 6:30 p.m. I think that's pretty much it, Pete.
Yeah, I'll give one plug. I just put up stuff. I'm doing a giveaway on my YouTube channel, Joe. I'm finally entering the world of giveaways. And people can really make me hurt here because I don't know if this is a low bar. I don't know if it's a high bar, but I said for every 200 subs I get between now and Thursday at noon Eastern, so almost exactly 48 hours, I will free roll someone in the SPY on DraftKings this week. So if I had 400 subs, I'm going to spin the wheel twice from comments in the video. Anyone who leaves a comment and subscribes, will be entered. So if I had 1,000 subs, I'm out $500. That I didn't put a cap on it. I probably should have.
Sharp.
I will figure out that problem when I get there. But if you guys want to head to my Twitter or my YouTube channel, I have all the contest details there. Other than that, we will be back on Sunday, for the Tilt Space and our 11 a.m. pre-kickoff show. We'll get you guys all ready for one of the last big, good main slates of the year. So for Matt LaMarca, for Joe Holka, I'm Peter Overzet. We will see you guys later in the week.